Hi everyone. So we are back today with another video on GT. So this video is going to be all about the grand tests. And in my previous video, I've already spoken about my GT review strategy. So if you haven't seen it yet, do see it. The link is in the description below. So as I said that I'll be answering all the queries regarding a grand test, when to give it, how to give it. And today I have with me someone who has aced the exam, aced INICET, aced NEETPG, aced all of it. That too in his first attempt, his first very internship attempt. Dr. Keshav Garg, who has secured an All India rank of 6 in NEETPG 2023. And for the INICET May session, he secured an All India rank of 43. So, like, really exceptional scores. So, hi Keshav, are you here? So, yeah. Keshav, so today we'll be discussing all the questions regarding GTs and grand tests. And I think you're a very perfect example of how people can manage their time, not only with GTs, but with internship overall. So I think this is going to be a really fun session, and let's get started without wasting more time. So before we begin, is there something that you would want to say?
Hi everyone, I'm happy to be here and let's get started and discuss about the GTs.
Right, so let's begin. I think the first most important question that is in everyone's mind is exactly when should you start a GT? Like whether is it after your internship, during your internship, in final year, exactly when did you start giving your GTs?
I started giving them in internship only. I didn't give any GT before internship, and in internship I started it within 1 month of starting my preparation. Like I started my preparation in early June, and by the end of June I started giving the GTs.
Okay, so our internship started in April, and so April, May, June, within like 2 months, you started giving the GPs. Okay,
Yes.
so so was your syllabus like we all give final year exams, and so we're done with the final year exams, and we kind of remember only final year. So after your final year exams got finished and you started your preparation during internship, how many subjects did you exactly finish when you started giving your GTs?
I done only 2 subjects when I started giving the GTs.
Okay. So like I think everyone will have in their mind ki just 2 subjects and GTs de rahe hain. So like how will I even score, or what is the exact mindset? Like with 2 subjects, how did you even have the courage to sit for a GT?
जैसे ये वाली चीज होती है कि ये लगता है कि अगर अभी सब्जेक्ट्स नहीं हुए तो भी नहीं स्टार्ट करना चाहिए क्योंकि मैं स्कोर नहीं कर पाऊंगा, या फिर ये वाली चीज भी लगती है इनिशियली कि अभी तो मैं अपने नोट्स ही पढ़ रहा हूँ, तो अगर जीटी दूंगा तो उसमें भी टाइम वेस्ट होगा। बट मतलब जैसे सीनियर सब बताते थे तो ये था कि जीटीज अगर जितना जल्दी स्टार्ट हो गए तो उससे काफी सारे फायदे होते हैं। जैसे एक ये होता है कि इनिशियली तुम जैसे जैसे फाइनल ईयर क्रॉस करके इंटर्नशिप में आओगे तो तुम्हारी एक बारी में 3.5 आवर्स बैठने वाला स्पैन भी चला जाएगा। तो तुम अर्ली जीटीज देकर एटलीस्ट वो जो 3.5 आवर्स बैठने वाली जो चीज है वो ठीक कर सकते हो। जैसे एग्जाम देते टाइम यूजुअली ऐसा होता है कि आफ्टर 100 क्वेश्चंस फटीग आने लग जाता है। तो अगर तुम अर्ली जीटी स्टार्ट करते हो तो फिर वो वाली हैबिट बनने लग जाती है कि तुम्हें 200 क्वेश्चंस तक कैसे बैठना है। दूसरी ये वाली चीज भी थी कि जैसे मैं ये वाली चीज प्लान नहीं कर पाता था कि मेरे को नेक्स्ट सब्जेक्ट्स क्या पढ़ने हैं, तो उसके लिए मैं जीटी को एज ए टूल यूज करता था कि एक जीटी देता था, उसमें जो मेरे बॉटम 3 सब्जेक्ट्स होते थे फॉर द नेक्स्ट 1 मंथ मैं वही वाले सब्जेक्ट्स पढ़ता था। फिर अगले जीटी में कुछ और बॉटम 3 आ जाते थे तो फिर वो वाले नेक्स्ट 3 सब्जेक्ट्स पढ़ लेता था। तो ये वाली चीज थी। बाकी बीच में ऐसा भी होता है कि इंटर्नशिप हेक्टिक होती है और साथ में ये भी पढ़ रहे होते हैं, तो बीच में ऐसा हो जाता है कि छोड़ देते हैं, अभी नहीं पढ़ना चाहिए, मतलब डीमोटिवेट हो जाते हैं काफी। तो उसमें भी अगर एक बार जीटी दे दो, हमें पता चल जाए कि हम कहाँ पर है, तो उससे भी मोटिवेशन आता है फिर कि कैसे आगे जीटी मतलब कैसे आगे पढ़ना है।
Right. So GT, that's really well said. That GT really helps you to make a schedule in your mind if you're not able to make a schedule for yourself, or you don't have any external motivation, internal motivation. So giving a GT would really motivate you from within to actually make a schedule and you can start. So I think, Keshav, you had your notes ready, your set of notes ready before internship. So jab bhi jo bottom 3 subjects you had, so you could just go back to your notes and read them.
Yes, yes,
Right?
yes.
Okay. So, like when you give your GTs, like when you started giving your GTs, what were your roughly how many correct did you have? Like with 2 to 3 subjects, you've done them, and you have some knowledge of final year because you've just cleared the exams. So, what is the number of corrects roughly you started from?
In the first test, I got around 130 correct.
Okay, so that's a really good score, in fact, to start from, in fact, 130. And if I just might ask for everybody, in the final paper, how many correct did you have?
Uh, I had 183 correct.
Okay, so I mean, from 130 to 183, it must have taken a lot of hard work, and that's exactly what we're here to discuss. How you exactly did that. So we'll take everybody through that journey as well. Right. So first takeaway is you should start your GTs early. Start making a schedule with your GTs. Like in the beginning, usually everybody recommends, and even I think both of us did the same thing, that we gave a GT once monthly. Then soon when we had about more than like regard 8 to 9 to 10 subjects over, then we started to give it bi-weekly, like every once in every 2 weeks. And then when we had kind of our first revision done, then just start giving it every week. So that should be basically your frequency of GTs, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, yes.
Right. So the other thing that is, we've talking about when to give a GT and how you started your GT. Now I wanted to know that when you're giving a GT, so what is your exact mindset, and like, agar suppose I'm in the middle of my preparation, I've done 3 subjects, and I'm like, आज मैं video देखकर बहुत motivate हूँ, I will give a GT. So how do you do it? How do you sit for a GT? Which GT to give? What to do? Just give us some idea on that.
लाइक मैं ऐसे करता था कि यूजली संडे को ही देता था जीटी, और जो एग्जाम टाइमिंग्स होते हैं 9 to 12:30 वाले, उसमें ही एग्जाम देता था। और प्रॉपर एनवायरनमेंट बना के, जैसे टेबल चेयर पर देना है, कंप्यूटर पर देना है, जिससे पूरी एग्जाम वाली फील आए। और मैंने मैरो के जीटीस देता था, तो जो उस टाइम पे लाइव होता था जीटी वो देता रहता था, और कोशिश करता था कि उसके स्केड्यूल के हिसाब से, जैसे वो हर 3 वीक्स में नया जीटी आता था, तो मैं ट्राई करता था कि उसके अकॉर्डिंग ही जीटी देता रहूं।
need practice makes a man perfect, log bolte hain, but a lot of people also say that you have to have perfect practice to get perfect scores. So I think that is a big takeaway, that you just don't just sit anywhere and randomly start giving a GT. If you plan to give a GT, if you have a hectic schedule from internship, find that day where you have relatively free 3 hours, sit at one place, remove all distractions, and give a GT in a peaceful environment, exactly with the mindset that you're giving an exam, irrespective of how many subjects you've covered. Okay, so that is about the environment. And now let's talk about briefly during the GT, what is the mindset and what is the process, how many questions, and how do you divide your time? Because I think time is the biggest factor that would differentiate, a very good rank holder to somebody who's gotten an average rank. So just tell me how you managed your time during those 3 hours for INI and 3.5 hours for NEET.
लाइक जैसे मैं जीटीज जब देता था, तो मुझे टाइम वाली प्रॉब्लम नहीं होती थी इतनी ज्यादा, यूजली 2 आवर्स में कंप्लीट हो जाता था। बट यूजली मैं ऐसे टारगेट्स रखता था कि फर्स्ट 60 मिनट्स में 70 क्वेश्चंस करने हैं, फिर नेक्स्ट 60 मिनट्स में 65 करने हैं, और नेक्स्ट 60 मिनट्स में फिर 65। तो 70, 65, 65 टेक्निक यूज करता था। तो उसमें मैं ऐसे करता था कि एक पेपर पे लिख लेता था कि अगर 210 से टाइमर स्टार्ट हो रहा है, तो जब 150 मिनट्स होंगे तो मेरे 70 क्वेश्चंस हो जाने चाहिए। फिर जब 90 मिनट्स लेफ्ट होंगे तो 135 क्वेश्चंस हो जाने चाहिए। जब 30 मिनट्स लेफ्ट होंगे तो 200 क्वेश्चंस कंप्लीट होने चाहिए, और लास्ट 30 मिनट्स मैं रिव्यू के लिए रखूंगा। ये करता था। आईएनआई में वही 10 10 मिनट्स कम की, फर्स्ट 50 मिनट्स में 70, नेक्स्ट 50 मिनट्स में 65, देन नेक्स्ट 50 मिनट्स में 65, एंड अगेन लास्ट 30 मिनट्स फॉर रिव्यू। जैसे जैसे मेरे
Okay.
टाइम होता रहता था कि 1 आवर हो गया, तो मैं वो माइलस्टोन जो पेपर पे लिखा था वो टिक करता जाता था।
Right. Okay. So very important. I think I got a very good message was ki, write it when because you're giving a practice, basically a practice, a mock test. It's basically you're simulating the real exam. So what you do is basically take, whenever you're attempting a GT, keep a pen and a paper handy, and beginning of the GT itself, write your target, so that when you write it, maybe in the main paper, even if you don't get a pen and paper, for example, in NEET, usually we don't get a pen and paper. So still you have that habit and it's ingrained in you after giving so many GTs ki yes, that it as backwards itself, because then paper mein there's a lot of issue. Like I had in my NEET final paper, the clock starts from 2:10 and it goes backwards. It will not start from 0 and go till 2:10. So 2:10 to 150 minutes, you should be done with your 70 questions and then accordingly write that. So you write that, fine. That is some very good insight on how you actually manage your time, right? So now let's beginning with the first set. Suppose you have, as you said that in the first 60 minutes, you did 70 questions, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yes.
Okay. So first 70 questions when you're doing, like when I start a paper and जो one liners होते हैं या फिर जो factual questions होते हैं, fine, I see the answer and if I know it, I know it. If I don't know it, I move ahead. Okay, we'll discuss how to keep questions at review. But suppose I have a long clinical stem. So how do you go about the long clinical stem? Like, do you start from the beginning and you start reading and then how do you do it?
उसके लिए लाइक ऐसे करता था कि लास्ट की 2 लाइन्स पहले पढ़ लेता था और साथ में ऑप्शंस पढ़ लेता था, जिससे एक बार ये आइडिया हो जाए कि कौन से सब्जेक्ट का है या क्या पूछना चाह रहा है, कि मतलब पूरा जो थ्रेड है वो एंड में क्या पूछना चाह रहे हैं। कि जैसे अगर पूरी हिस्ट्री दी है बट एंड में वो ये पूछ रहा है कि व्हाट इज द मैकेनिज्म ऑफ ड्रग, तो मेरा पहले से ओरिएंटेशन रहेगा कि फार्मा का क्वेश्चन है, उसके अकॉर्डिंग सोचना है। तो पहले लास्ट 2 लाइन्स पढ़ लो, ऑप्शंस पढ़ लो, उसके बाद फिर से पूरा स्टेम एक बार रीड कर लो, फिर उसके अकॉर्डिंग मार्क।
Okay, right. This is what I did. Even I did this. So last line and then going back so that you already know. If you start reading from the starting and you reach the last line, when you know the last line, then you've forgotten what the starting part was. Then you again start reading. So it will waste your time. So go to the last line first, then start from the beginning and see the key points. Now the point is that you don't have a pen and paper or it's not a physical exam. So like, how do you exactly not miss out on the key point? Do you like touch the screen? And I'm just dissecting it for everybody so that you exactly know what like rank holders like under 10 ranks do.
लाइक मेरे साथ ये वाली दिक्कत होती थी पहले कि एक्सेप्ट नॉट वगैरह नहीं, मैं मतलब छूट जाता था बीच बीच में। तो उसके लिए मैं जो यूज करता था वो 10 सेकेंड्स रूल यूज करता था कि अगर कोई भी क्वेश्चन आ रहा है तो एटलीस्ट मैं 10 सेकेंड्स के लिए आंसर मार्क नहीं करता था, कोशिश करता था कि उस क्वेश्चन को बार बार पढ़ता रहूं, अगर मुझे फर्स्ट एड में भी आंसर पता चल गया तब भी। तो मतलब ऐसे पॉइंट वाला पॉइंट स्क्रीन पे पॉइंट करके तो मैंने नहीं किया था, बट वही कोशिश करता था कि ईच वर्ड अच्छे से पढ़ना है और जल्दी से आंसर क्लिक नहीं करना है।
Okay. So
और
this was one, his technique that he used. My personal technique was that I used to touch the screen, and you can touch the screen in the real exam as well. Nobody can hold your hand if you don't touch the screen. So you touch the screen actually and see कि हाँ यार ये लिखा है, and I have gone till the last word of the question कि accept तो नहीं miss हुआ या something like that. So okay, so that is two different techniques that you can see which one suits you. Fine, so we have gotten this. Now let me ask you, like you keep 30 minutes for review. Firstly, what do you review? Like if I was someone who's watching this and I don't know how to give it GT review, मतलब क्या होता है, क्या रखना है review में? What is review?
तो ऐसे हो सकता है कि मतलब 4 तरह से हो सकते हैं। मतलब एक चीज हो सकती है कि तुमने क्वेश्चन पढ़ा, तुम्हें आंसर पता है और वो फिक्स है कि वही आंसर है, मतलब तुम्हें देखते ही पता चल गया, तो उसको तभी मार्क कर दो और उसको रिव्यू में नहीं रखना चाहिए। ठीक है। उसके बाद जो क्वेश्चंस हैं जिनमें जो सबसे ज्यादा कॉमन होता है कि 2 ऑप्शंस में कंफ्यूजन हो रहा है कि ए या बी है या ए या सी है, उन वाले क्वेश्चंस को मैं रिव्यू में रखता था एक तो। और एक अगर कोई ऐसा क्वेश्चन है जिसमें मैं एक ही ऑप्शन रूल आउट कर पा रहा हूँ, बाकी 3 ऑप्शन नहीं रूल आउट कर पा रहा हूँ, तो उसको भी मैं रिव्यू में रख लेता था। कोई ऐसा क्वेश्चन है जिसमें मेरे को चारों ही ऑप्शंस का कोई आइडिया नहीं है, पूरे क्वेश्चन का कोई आइडिया नहीं, उसको मैं रिव्यू में ही नहीं रखता था। तो एट द एंड ऑफ 200 क्वेश्चंस मैं 2 ही टाइप के क्वेश्चंस रिव्यू में रखता था, या तो जिनमें 2 ऑप्शंस में कंफ्यूजन हो या जिसमें मैं एक रूल आउट कर पा रहा हूँ। मेरे पास 3 ऑप्शंस हैं जिसमें से मेरे को एक चूज करना है। फिर
ठीक है, right.
लास्ट के 30 मिनट्स में फिर मैं एक बार देख लेता था कि जैसे कितने नंबर ऑफ क्वेश्चंस हैं जो मैंने रिव्यू में रखे हैं। जैसे ये वाली चीज होती है कि INI नीट दोनों में एटलीस्ट तुम्हें 190 क्वेश्चंस अटेम्प्ट करने एग्रेसिव खेलना है, क्योंकि एक ठीक करने पे 4+4 मिल रहा है और नेगेटिव में -1 ही है, तो यू शुड प्ले एग्रेसिव। तो इसलिए लास्ट में तुम देख सकते हो कि तुम्हारे रिव्यू में कितने क्वेश्चंस हैं। मान लो कि तुम्हारे 30 क्वेश्चंस रिव्यू में है, तो फिर तुम पहले ए और बी वाले जो कंफ्यूजन वाले उसमें ज्यादा चांसेस है कि तुम ठीक कर पाओ, तो पहले वो वाले क्वेश्चंस कर लो। अगर वो क्वेश्चंस करने के बाद भी तुम्हारे जो नंबर ऑफ अटेम्प्ट्स है वो लेस देन 190 हो रहे हैं, तो फिर जो 3 ऑप्शंस जिसमें चूज करने हैं वो वाले भी तुम अटेम्प्ट करो, क्योंकि एटलीस्ट 190 अटेम्प्ट करने चाहिए.
Okay, so this is again a very important point that you work on probabilities. So when you're confused between two options, there's 50% chance that you get it right. So first, when you're keeping questions for review, firstly keep not a lot of questions for review कि आप वो 30 minutes में कर ही ना पाओ. That is not feasible at all. कि आपने 50 question रख दी, you cannot see 50 questions. Trust me, in 30 minutes you cannot see 50 questions. To try to keep, if the paper is very difficult and you're really confused, try to keep max 20 to 30. I think Keshav, when I discussed with him before, he kept very less questions. And because I was a bit confused in the beginning while giving GTs, so I kept around 20 to 30 questions. So, okay, for an average student, maybe that is good enough. Let's start with that. So when you keep them and review, see then that you have to play aggressive, as we said. So work on the probabilities. In two option correct, mark the questions which you're confused between two options first. Then even the correct attempting is less than 190, then go on the questions which you're three confused. Also, one important thing, if you have a question in front of you for which you're totally clueless, something like which is the trial, like it was asked in this year's INICET May session, which is the trial or something like that, and you don't know at all. So, personally, I would never recommend to keep it in review, because you look at it, you feel bad that you don't know the answer. Then if you keep it for review, again, you'll come back and waste time. You will not gain anything, because suddenly the answer can't pop out if it's a totally new question. So don't keep it for review and don't waste your time. You know that you are leaving those questions. So you should judge your paper as it comes and not just think that you can answer everything. So knowing your strengths and weakness during the paper is also very important, so that you don't really over expect from the paper and then feel disheartened later. Okay, so here we have spoken about
There
how to
is
divide our time. Please, please.
there's one more tip here. Like there was this question in INI on trial. So if you read a question and you are totally clueless about the question, still you should read the options. Like on that trial question, there were two options which could be ruled out based on just the statement. They were mutually opposite. So you could rule that two statements just based on that ki the both statements are opposite. So then you just have to choose between the two options. So if you are having less number of attempted questions, you can then go to that question and mark one of them. So this thing also,
Right.
uh, like one question was also there in this INA where that question was on OFTA, and all the four options were clueless, but in the image itself the answer was given. But many of my friends left the question just by reading the question like all the four options are clueless, so I will not mark the answer. But you should be a more observant in the questions in INI especially. They usually give a clue in these questions.
Right, right, right. That's really well said. Like the examiners want to scare you with such type of questions. So that time, you don't start feeling guilty that I've not read it or I've not read my main notes, so that's why I don't know it. It is nothing. When you're in the paper, you're equal with everybody. Somebody who started preparing in second year of MBBS or somebody who started preparing in the post internship period. So you all are equal during that time, and I feel give your 110% during the paper by actually seeing the options. You can rule out options of a question which you have no clue about as well. Very well said. Read the questions, and if you only have no clue about all four options, only then leave it. Okay, so we got that.
एक और इम्पोर्टेंट टिप है कि जैसे मैरो वाले जीटीज देते हैं ना, तो उसमें नीचे ऑप्शन होता है कि तुम अगर तुमने क्वेश्चन को गेस किया तो तुम मार्क कर सकते हो कि यू हैव गेस द आंसर, और फिर एग्जाम के एनालिसिस में वो भी आता है कि तुम्हारे गेस क्वेश्चंस कितने करेक्ट हुए हैं, तो तुम उसको भी यूज कर सकते हो उन वाले क्वेश्चंस के लिए जिसमें तुम दो या तीन ऑप्शंस में कंफ्यूज हो.
Right, exactly. So this is also another option we have. So we should use this option. So at the end, when you're reviewing your GT, you know exactly that how many you guessed. Because see, the main aim here is to understand your own mindset in the paper. Because you are the same person and you will be giving the papers. So the mind's understood, so that how to avoid questions you're guessing and getting it right. So make sure you use the guess feature. So another thing is that while giving the GT, I feel that whenever you're giving a mock paper in the beginning, like when you're starting your GT, so make sure that you keep a pen and paper along with you, so that whenever you're attempting a question and you suppose you have several statements about, for example, HPV vaccine, and there is a statement that HPV vaccine is contraindicated in pregnancy. So, this was one of my tricks that I use, that if I know that a statement I'm confused about in the paper, I used to write it there itself on that sheet, so that I know ki after I saw this paper, I need to review that particular fact again. So as soon as the paper got over, like I had these 4 or 5 facts, plus I had the topics which were asked in the paper and which I felt I was weak in or I need to revise. So just when the paper got over, even before reviewing the entire GT, I used to first go through these topics, so that I know that even if I got my answer correct in these GT topics, but they are somewhere I'm unsure about them. So I used to
Hmm.
revise those topics first, so that I'll be done with those topics. So for beginning GTs, you can use this trick, but towards the end, when like you have nearly a month or two remaining for your final paper, then you should start practicing a GT without using a pen and paper, because in NEET you don't get a pen and paper. Yes, in INI usually you do get a pen and paper depending on the rules of each year, but in NEET you don't get a pen and paper usually. So that's how you should modify your trick depending on the paper you're giving. So remember, write those points, write the topics you're unsure about while doing your GT, so you know your mindset, you understand yourself better. Okay, so after this, I think one very frequently asked question is that I'm getting these many questions correct, and how to increase my number of questions. So Keshav, like I'll ask you like section wise. I've divided in several sections. So like for someone who is getting less than 120 questions correct, what should be their approach? Less than 120 correct.
The first thing is any number of corrects that the student is having, and if he needs to increase the correct, the first thing that he needs to do is to properly review the paper. That the GT review technique should be good. Like I use the sunrise technique that you mentioned in your video, and it really helped me. And you can use that technique, and the GT review should be good enough because it helps you to learn more and more topics. The previous year topics are being repeated that you can learn, and you can know the silly mistakes you are making. So if you are learning from each GT, then it will help you increase the number of corrects. Other than that, if you have like if the number of corrects are less than 120, then probably you have not read the whole content. Like you need to work more on your content. And one thing is, you should not leave any subject. You should read all the 19 subjects. And if you have already made your notes, then you can read them. Or if you are new, you are beginning just now, then you can use the rapid revision notes or the BTR or a DVT as a basic notes, and you can add the PYQs to it.
Right. So less than 120, basically the problem is with you haven't read the syllabus well enough, because if once you've read all the 19 subjects properly, it is tough that you don't score up till 120. There is somewhere lacking, you've missed one subject, or there is some major topic that you've missed. That's why you are getting less than 120 correct. So for that, if you are starting 2 to 3 months before the paper, do not go on the main notes or the main videos if you've not read them before, because that is not at all feasible. In fact, you should just take the rapid revision and add the previous year questions and read that again and again. If you have read all the 19 subjects and still you're getting less than 120 correct, remember the stuff that you have read, you haven't revised it well enough. Rather, you haven't added the PYQs, the extra points of PYQs or the PYQ topics. So read those notes again. Okay. So the next is a subset of students who get 120 to 150. They're stuck somewhere between 130, 135. What should be the strategy for them?
For this, like in the middle, yes, I was stuck in at around 140 to 145, correct. The one thing that I did was I identified my weak subjects that I used to like जो मैं कुछ सब्जेक्ट्स बार बार भूल जाता था, जैसे कि बायोकेम हो गया, एनेस्थीसिया हो गया, फोरेंसिक हो गया। ये वाले सब्जेक्ट्स में बार बार मल्टीपल रिवीजन चाहिए होते थे, तो ऐसे वाले सब्जेक्ट्स मैंने अपने आइडेंटिफाई किए थे, और मैं ऐसे करता था कि हर जीटी से पहले 2 दिन वो वाले सब्जेक्ट्स जरूर रिवाइज करता था। मतलब वीक सब्जेक्ट्स हर जीटी से पहले जरूर रिवाइज करने हैं। तो लेट्स से अगर तुम एग्जाम होने से पहले 5-6 जीटीज देते हो तो तुम्हारे वीक सब्जेक्ट्स 5-6 टाइम्स ऑलरेडी रिवाइज हो जाएंगे, तो तुम अपने वीक सब्जेक्ट्स को अपने स्ट्रॉन्गर सब्जेक्ट्स में कन्वर्ट कर सकते हो। दूसरा वही है कि
Okay.
अगर 120 to 150 जा रहे हैं तो प्रोबेबली तुम यू हैव गॉटन अ गुड फर्स्ट रीड, बट वही है कि तुम्हें रिवीजन अच्छे से करना है। इसके लिए एक चीज ये कर सकते हैं कि जैसे यूजुअली सब ऐसे करते हैं कि जब फर्स्ट रीड पूरा कंप्लीट हो जाते हैं 19 सब्जेक्ट्स का, फिर सेकंड रीड पे जाते हैं, फर्स्ट रिवीजन पे जाते हैं। तो उसके लिए ये कर सकते हैं कि जब आपके इनिशियली 10 सब्जेक्ट्स एक बार हो जाएं, उसके बाद ही आप अपनी सेकंड रिवीजन शुरू कर दो। क्योंकि ऐसा होता है कि जब तुम पूरे 19 सब्जेक्ट्स कंप्लीट कर लोगे तो तुम उस टाइम पे बहुत कुछ इनिशियल सब्जेक्ट्स वाला भूल चुके होगे। तो अगर तुम 10 सब्जेक्ट्स के बाद वो स्टार्ट करते हो तो तुम्हारा बेटर होल्ड और बेटर लॉन्गर टाइम के लिए याद रहेगा वो।
Okay, fine. So this is a very good point here that whenever you are stuck in a middle range where you have read the syllabus once and you are not able to retain the syllabus, a very important question ki we are not able to retain. So how you plan your revision strategy such that after you've done 8 to 9 subjects, you don't leave those 8 to 9 subjects totally and come back to them after you've done your 19 subjects. Honestly, you will start forgetting every time you will follow this cycle, you will forget the starting subjects that you'd revised. So do 8 to 9 subjects and keep 2 to 3 hours in your morning session or whenever you can fit during the day when you need to revise the earlier subjects that you've done. Also, another thing that I used to do is that suppose I'm doing some subject like biochem, and while I'm doing biochemistry and I've already done pharma, suppose, so, or if I've not even done pharma, so while I'm doing biochemistry and I come upon uh, the hyperlipidemics and cholesterol and LDL chapter in lipoprotein chapter in biochem, I used to go to pharma and see the hypolipidemics drug again. So that's how you will revise those earlier subjects done again and again. Keep them in loop. Never totally isolate them and just be like, I've done those subjects, so I'll see it after 1 month. That till in those 1 month, you will again come to square one. So keep them in the loop. Keep going to the correlated topics. If you read, suppose the cardiac cycle in physiology, again go back to medicine and see the murmurs that time itself, so that you keep those subjects in loop. Now comes the very cream range of people getting above 150 correct. So those people who are already getting above 150 correct, and I think you will be one of them before the exam. So what is your strategy? How did you improve from 150 to 170 or 180?
फॉर दिस लाइक मैं 2 मंथ्स के लिए मेरे साथ ऐसा हुआ था कि मैं अराउंड 150 टू 155 पे बिल्कुल स्टेगनेंट हो गया था, बिल्कुल प्लेट्यू आ गया था, इंक्रीज नहीं हो रहे थे। तो उसके लिए एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट चीज है कि आप लास्ट 10 डेज में कैसे रिवाइज कर रहे हो। लास्ट 10 डेज के लिए जैसे जब भी तुम सेकंड रिवीजन कर रहे हो तो तुम्हारा मेन एम ये होना चाहिए कि तुम लास्ट 10 डेज के लिए अपना ऐसा कंटेंट बनाओ कि तुम उसको रिवाइज कर सको। तो उसके लिए एक चीज तो है कि तुम अपनी नोटबुक बनाओ जिसमें तुम जो भी फ्रिक्वेंटली टॉपिक्स बोल रहे हो या पीवाईक्यू के जो तुम्हें इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक्स लग रहे हैं वो उसमें लिख लो। मैं इसके लिए ऐसे करता, मैंने कोई कॉपी नहीं बनाई थी। मैंने ऐसे किया था कि व्हाट्सएप पे 19 अलग 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 ग्रुप्स बनाए थे सब्जेक्ट वाइज, और जैसे एक एनाटॉमी का ग्रुप बना लिया। तो उसमें मैं क्या करता था कि जो भी जीटी से मुझे क्वेश्चंस लग रहे हैं जो मुझे रिवाइज करने हैं, उन सब के स्क्रीनशॉट उस ग्रुप में जाते थे। जो इंपॉर्टेंट इमेजेस मुझे लगती थी वो उस ग्रुप में जाती थी, और जो मुझे नोट्स अपने रिवाइज करने हैं लास्ट 10 डेज में उसकी भी मैं पीडीएफ बना के उस ग्रुप में डाल देता था। तो अब जब मैं लास्ट 10 डेज में जो मुझे रिवीजन करना है और मुझे एनाटॉमी रिवाइज करना है, तो मैं व्हाट्सएप पे जाता था, बस वो ग्रुप खोलता था और उसको ऊपर से नीचे तक पूरा स्क्रॉल कर लेता था। मतलब बेसिकली ऐसा करना है कि जो भी तुम्हें पढ़ना है या जो भी तुम चीज भूल रहे हो वो सब कुछ एक जगह इकट्ठी करनी है। लास्ट के 10 डेज में ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि ये वहां से भी पढ़ना है वहां से भी पढ़ना है, सब एक जगह कंसोलिडेटेड होना चाहिए। अगर तुमने टीएनडी दिया है, तुमने अपने मेन नोट्स भी पढ़े हैं, तो तुम्हें लास्ट 10 डेज के लिए वो आपस में कंबाइन करके उसका पीडीएफ उस पे ही ग्रुप पे ही डाल दो, या अपने नोटबुक तुम बना रहे हो उसमें ही ऐड कर दो कि तुम्हें टीएनडी के नोट्स या मेन नोट्स या तुम अगर कोई रैपिड रिवीजन कर रहे हो वो सब अलग नहीं करना है। सब कुछ कंबाइन करके एक ही जगह पे रखो जो तुम लास्ट 10 डेज में रिवाइज कर सको।
Right. This is, I think, the game changer for a lot of people who suddenly drastically change their rank, increase their number of correctives when they've revised that last 10 days revision notes. So, Keshav has told a really good point about those people who make either they make the notes on their iPad or they make digital notes. You can easily put a PDF on your WhatsApp group, and especially for students who are already working as a post intern, if they are doing a RMO duty, or you are an intern and you have hectic job hours, but a lot of times we are just sitting and accompanying the patient. So especially during those times, you can utilize this time and just scroll through your WhatsApp groups and see the important images. And this would also solve another problem which comes for many students, is that there is so much content on Instagram, on various social media platforms, or like a lot of good teachers are putting them on their Facebook groups. So all those screenshots, how do you segregate them? So make a WhatsApp group, segregate it subject wise, keep only the most important stuff there. Now see, if for a subject you will keep 3000 pictures, you will never be able to revise that. Be selective. And how do you be selective? Is by seeing the previous year questions. So the first step in every preparation is doing your revision notes. If you have your main notes which you've read multiple number of times, you will be fast with them. If not, then take any platform's revision notes, add the PYQs there. When you read them in your second reading, you would know which topics you cannot solve. So then, or which you don't remember. So those topics, those classifications, you add to your last 10 days revision. So I had a similar problem. I was stuck at around 150, 155 questions correct. And how I solved this problem was similarly to making my handwritten notes. So basically, I usually had my notebooks because I wasn't very comfortable with the iPad. So I had physical notes. So I made my notebook, which I've also discussed in one of my videos for last 10 days revision. I've shown you like a blue notebook. So in that, I basically added all the tables and classifications, even basic things like calculating a GCS. A lot of times we get that wrong. So add it in that notebook so that you work on the basicest points, and that will help you to increase your score from 150 to 170, 180. So that is another important point. And the next
One im-
question that
one important thing, if you are getting more than 150 characters, you need to work more on your MCQ skills, like decreasing the silly mistakes that we have already discussed, or reading the last line and the options you can do, or one very important tip that one of my seniors gave me, that instead of choosing the one correct option, you should be able to rule out the three incorrect options. So that will really help you to decrease the silly mistakes. You'll be able, if you are able to rule out three options, then you know that yes, this one is the correct one. Because lot of times what happens, you read the question, you see the first option and you mark it as correct if you find it correct, and at the end we find that the other option was more correct. So ruling out the options is a better option rather than going for the correct one directly.
right, that's another very good point. Also, Keshav, I wanted to know from you as well that when we're talking about GT reviewing, and we already use, I've spoken about my sunrise strategy. So how do you exactly, because there are 200 questions, and first giving a paper seems like a big hassle, and then reviewing those 200 questions. So exactly how do you do it? How do you break those 200 questions? Do you review all of them at once? How do you exactly go about it?
I used to divide it into 40 questions per day, and I used to review them over 5 days. Like I used to give the GT on Sunday. I didn't used to study or review anything on the same day. From Monday to Friday, I used to review 40 questions per day. It used to take me around 1.5 to 2 hours per day for reviewing them.
Okay. Okay. So do you divided for 5 days? Okay. So I did kind of the same thing. Just one thing that I would like to add here is, when you give the GT that day, the set of topics that you were confused while giving the GT, read them that time. Just push yourself that extra mile. Give those half an hour extra after the 3 hours. Take a break, maybe in the middle. Take a break in the middle, review those topics, just see those topics very quickly through your notes, so you know that you are sure with those topics, and you'll see that when you're reviewing your GT, again you've already read those topics, you don't need to. Another common question that I when I posted like my last GT notebook video was that, when you're getting extra points from a topic which is important, which is in the previous year question, where do you add them? Do you add them in the GT notebook itself, or would you add them maybe separately in your notes where you've written that topic? How do you go about it?
I used to write them in my main notes only. Or like what I used to do was from the second revision, I used to keep 2 pages at the starting of my notebook where I used to add the points which I used to forget easily. So at that in that area only, I used to add this extra points so that I could revise them in the last 10 days. I didn't make any separate notebook because it is very difficult to go through so many sources at the last minute.
Exactly, I'll agree. So, in your GT notebook, basically, you just put under the 4 columns of your sunrise strategy, you just put the number of questions so that you can see that in which area in a particular subject you lack. For example, anatomy, you lack the recall questions more, or you in medicine, you lack the understanding questions more, so you need to understand the concept again. So just write that, and when you find some new information, you basically add that point to your main notes, because again, you don't want to create another notebook and hassle of revising it, because anything which you've not revised at least 2 to 3 times, you cannot recall it in the paper. This is a fact. Like, I thought that I could recall a lot of things and I have a very great memory, but that never happens. Trust me, you have to think so much at your spinal level, because there's so much stress at that. In those 3 hours, you cannot recall like each and every information which you've read in first year MBBS or anything. That never happens, honestly speaking. I think you'll
Mm.
agree, Keshav.
Yes, yes.
Mhm. So another point that I would like to bring up here is that when we are dealing with new information in the GT, so as one of the very good tips that Keshav gave was that whenever you find a new question and you feel it is either in the previous year questions, as I've already said, how to find out if a new question is important. Not every new question is important. Yes, obviously it is in the GT, so that already filters it for you that yes, it might be important. Now, is it the most important thing that you need to know? For that, either is it's a previous year topic, or if like more than 30 to 40% people are getting it correct. So in Marrow GT, this is a big advantage that you know how many people get that question right. So if it is something like less than 10%, only 15% people are getting it correct, it's okay. You can kind of skip that new information unless it's a previous year. If it's more than 40% or 30 to 40% correct, then you can save that information. And how you retain that information with you is, if you can add it in your notebooks, that's the best. Trust me, that's the best. You will revise it with subsequent revision. Another thing is, like Keshav said, you can take a screenshot and put it in a WhatsApp group, which you will be revising in the last 10 days. That is the option. If you're not following any of this and you have handwritten notes, suppose that somebody like me, what I did was I used to bookmark my questions in my GT. Now do not bookmark like 30-40 questions, so that if you've given 10 GTs, you will have again a set of 500 questions. Please don't do that. You only maximum bookmark 10 to 15 max if a paper is very difficult. 10 questions per GT, you can keep it as a bookmark, and whenever you are revising in your second revision. So in your first revision, when you've done the PYQs, in the second revision, you will have some bookmarked PYQs as well, along with the number of GTs you've given, the bookmarked GT questions. So you can see those GT questions there. So that's how you can either use the bookmark feature, or you can take the screenshots if you're taking the digital notes. If we're talking about digital notes, right? So now another question is that what is your source of GT? Like, we're talking about GTs, but we haven't spoken about what is the top 10 rankers using. Where are they doing the GTs from?
I mainly use the Marrow GTs as most of the students give it, so we can get a good idea of how where we are standing, and also the analytics part is also very good on the Marrow. And also, I used to give the DAM CBTs, which are online tests. They were very helpful. They used to give you the real exam feel, and also the pattern was very near to the actual NEET exam, so it was quite helpful.
Yeah, even I felt that. I had also given Marrow GT and DAM CBT. So, one thing that I've spoken to some of the students from MAMC who've done really, really well is that they used to give at least 1 or 2 tests from different sources. Because, see, Marrow or any source will have a particular set of asking their questions, and they will kind of repeat topics. But NEET is not following Marrow, or they are not exactly following DAM. So, like one of my really close friends, she got an awesome rank, and she gave 1 GT from Prep Ladder, 1 GT from Cerebellum, because basically you need to give a grand test. So if you use different sources for grand test, like there are free mocks, so give every free mock from different platforms, because you get an idea of what those platform users are, what kind of questions they are accustomed to. So that will help you, right? So after I think we've spoken about a lot of topics. So one sure short sign that you are on the right track while doing your GT, what is that?
Uh, I think the number of corrects is the best that you can check, because the score will depend on the difficulty of the paper, and also it depends on at which level you are currently in your preparation. So number of corrects is the best thing. If you are increasing your number of corrects subsequently in the GTs, then you are probably on the right track.
Right. So, somebody has asked me that if I've scored about 90 correct, will I get INI in my previous video? They've put it in the comments. So, if you've scored 90 correct, trust me, if you're progressing from 90, even 92, 94 with, your subsequent GTs, that means you're progressing, and that means you are leading, you are improving your skills, not only your exam going skills, but you're also building on content. So I just want to say, I think in the last that there is nothing that is impossible, and giving GTs is just not a testing tool. You are not, giving a GT. That means whatever score you're gotten, that's the final score. That is not at all the final score. Trust me, even before my main paper, 2 weeks before I'd given one GT, and even then I got only 155 correct. That was, I'm saying, only because I had revised it many times and I was stuck at 150 since, I don't know, a lot of time. So, but in the final paper, because I was consistent, I did not give up ki nahi aa raha, so it's okay. So I could get 172 correct. So, even if you're getting less correct, you can definitely do it, and treat GT as a learning tool. Do not always treat it as a testing tool. Yes, you're learning those questions. There will be new questions, and learn from them. The more mistakes you make in the GT, the less you will make in the new paper. So that is all that I have to say. And Keshav, any last words from your side?
Uh, for GTs, one thing I would like to say कि जितनी गलतियां हो सकती है ना, वो सब GTs में कर लो, जिससे मतलब फाइनल एग्जाम में वो सारी गलतियां ना हो. मेन ये रीजन है GT देने का, जो मुझे लगता है जो फायदा होगा.
Right. So I think this is the end of this session, but we had a lovely session, and we'll come up with more such sessions where we'll be talking about how to exactly work in internship, how to crack an exam during internship, with the hectic internship. For example, we were in MAMC, so we had a very hectic internship. So we'll be talking about it in the upcoming videos. So happy studying, and I hope you guys are motivated enough to give a GT and more importantly, review it. Thank you.
Thank you.